This is the target 4C retake. So 4C on rotations. So we need to rotate this 270 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. Now, I'm going to teach you the coordinate manipulation method. The other method is, of course, using patty paper, which works perfectly fine as well. But it's really hard to demonstrate on this video here, so it's impossible to demonstrate actually on this video. So we're going to have to do it this way. Okay, so 270 counterclockwise about the origin, and I wrote all the rules up here. AB gets mapped to B negative A for 270 counterclockwise. Which is the same as XY gets mapped to Y negative X. You can think about it either way. So let's just first write the coordinates for A down. So the coordinates for A are negative 3, negative 3. And for B, they are negative 2, negative 1. And C is negative 1, negative 4. Okay, now I think it's super important that we think about where this is going to end up first, so that when we get our answer we can see if it makes any kind of sense. So remember, this way right here, going this way, that is clockwise, but we're going this way, and that's counterclockwise, right? So if you just think about point B, if I start going counterclockwise, which is this way, when I go 90 degrees, I'm going to end up somewhere in here, right? And then when I go another 90, I'm going to end up somewhere in here, so that's 180. And then another 90 is going to put me somewhere in there at 270. So my answer should be in this quadrant. So if it's not, I probably have made a mistake. So I'm just going to go ahead and erase this. And now I'm going to use a point manipulation. Now I think this is easier if you underline. First let's make sense of what's going to happen, and then we're going to do some underlining that'll help us. So if this is our rule, xy gets mapped to y negative x, or if you like, AB gets mapped to b negative a, you can see that they're going to trade places. So that's going to happen for sure, right? And it looks like the original first one, this x value right here, this original first one, when we write it, is going to turn negative. So I'm going to underline all of those to remind me that those are the ones that are going to have to turn negative. So I'm going to go ahead and switch places. So I'm going to write this negative 3 first, and then I'm going to write that, but I'm going to change the sign. It was negative 3, now it's positive 3. Okay, now again, these two trade places. So I get negative 1 first, and then instead of being a negative 2, this is going to be a positive 2, and I'm going to write it second. And then here, I'm going to write negative 4 first, because these switch places also. And then this, instead of being a negative 1, is going to be a positive 1. So now let's plot those points. So negative 3, 3 is right here, and that's looking promising because we said hopefully our figure would end up in this quadrant. And then B is negative 1, 2. And then C is negative 4, 1. And that's it. Okay, so let's try another one. Okay, so this one's 180 about the origin, and again I have the rule written right here, 180. Now 180, this doesn't say what direction we're going, but the thing with 180 is if you go 180 in counterclockwise direction, you end up the same place you would go if you had done it in a clockwise direction. So 180 in either direction is AB gets mapped to negative A, negative B, or if you like, XY gets mapped to negative X, negative Y. So 180. So first let's write our coordinates down. A is this point here that looks like negative 1, negative 2. And B is the point 0, 1. And then C is the point 1, negative 1. Okay, now this whole figure doesn't fit in one shape, so I have to actually think about where each point would go. But we're going in either direction, it doesn't matter, so I'll go counterclockwise. But if I move B 180, that's 2 moves, so this would end up here and this would end up here. So B prime should be about somewhere on this line, and actually it's going to be right there on that line. And then A, if I move 90, would be somewhere in here, and then another 90 would be somewhere up here. So so A should be somewhere in here, and then C, 90 would get me here, and then another 90 would get me somewhere in here. So I should have 1 point here, 1 point somewhere in this quadrant, 1 point somewhere in that quadrant. So again, I'm going to do some erasing and show you exactly where the points are going to go. Alright, so get another color. Alright, so these don't trade places, they just change signs. That's all that happens, they change signs. So this is -1, -2, it's going to be +1, +2. Again, these change signs, only 0 doesn't change signs, it just stays at 0, but 1 will turn into a -1. And here this 1 becomes negative, and this -1 becomes positive. So now I'm going to plot those points. So 1, 2, and that's where we said that A prime was going to end up somewhere in here. And B prime is 0, -1, and we said that that was where B prime was going to end up. Whoops, sorry. This is A prime, and this is B prime. And then C prime is -1, 1, and we said it was going to end up somewhere in here. And then I'm going to connect the dots. Okay. So for number 3, we have to write a rule to describe the rotation. So you can use patty paper to try to reason it out using patty paper, or you can use some common sense and point manipulation. So that's what I'm going to do, is use some common sense and some point manipulation. Alright. So we'll start with K. So this point K has to end up here at K prime, right? So if I think about it, if I want to go this way, it looks like it just moved 1 quadrant in this direction. Well, this is the clockwise direction, so my guess, and this is simply a guess, is that we went 90 degrees clockwise. Now, you might think about looking at it this way. And if I went K here, that'd be 90 and another 90 and then another 90. So I could also think about it being 270 counterclockwise. But when I look at the rules up here, 90 clockwise is B negative A and 270 counterclockwise is B negative A. So it's the same rule. So I could use either of these. Now I'm just going to test it out to make sure that it works. So my point for K is -2, -3. So my rule, remember, is AB gets mapped to B negative A. So they're going to trade places, and the sign of the first one's going to change. So let me get another color. I like this one. Okay, so the first quadrant, the first coordinate is going to change signs, and then they're going to trade places. So this should be -3, and then this is going to be written second, but I'm going to change it in sign, so +2. So K prime should be -3, 2. So let's check and see if it is. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, so I'm guessing that it is definitely that we were right, that it's 90 clockwise or 270 counterclockwise. The thing is, if this changed sides or maybe just 1 point moved to the right place, it's hard to tell. So we really should check all of the points. So let's list the rest of them. And I was using this blue. So K, P, was the point 0, 1, negative 1, and Q is the point 0, negative 4, and T was the point 3, negative 2. Alright, now we need to change these around, so get a new ink color and do purple. So again, we're going to underline the first, and then we're going to change places and signs. So when I trade places, I get negative 1, 0 can't change signs, so that's P prime. Q, switch these around, so negative 4, but again 0 can't change sign, so this is Q prime. And then finally negative 2, and this one can change signs. The opposite of 3 is negative 3, and that's T prime. So now I'm just going to check to make sure those are right. P is prime is definitely the point negative 1, 0, and Q prime is the point negative 4, 0, and T prime is negative 2, negative 3. So we did it correctly. So we rotated, we can either say 90 clockwise or 270 counter, so either one is correct. I'm just going to write 90 clockwise about the origin. Okay. Now, is this a rotation of 90 degrees clockwise about the origin? So remember, clockwise is definitely this direction, so this moved from this quadrant to this quadrant. So that's looking like it moved the right way. The problem is those shapes don't even look close to being the same shape that they were before, right? The shape should be the same when I move it, and one shape shouldn't be larger than the other. So the two shapes, once I change them, once I move it, should be the same size that they were at the start, and the same size and the same shape. So this is clearly not the same shape. So I'm going to say this is not a 90 degrees clockwise rotation because the shapes are different. Okay, so notice in this one you can see that if you twisted this, they line up on top of each other, right? And in all of the previous examples, here if I twisted this, it would line up on top of itself, and the same here. But this one, if I tried to twist this, there's no way it would line up with this. Okay? And we could look at all the points to verify it, but if you can just look at it and see it, that's better. Okay. So here you have to try these problems on your own. So here is, and you got to show them either to your geometry teacher, a math lab teacher, or your geometry support teacher. So here's number 1, number 2, number 3, and finally number 4. Good luck. Okay, so here's you try number 1, you try number 2, you try number 3, you try number 4.